Oh, let's see if we can make that a little bit more brighter, closer. Come on, bro, Zach. Come on, bro, Zach. Get your ass in here. What up, everybody? I'm waiting on my friend to join. What do we do? I know we got a bunch of shit that we can scrap. What up, what up, what up? How's everybody's day going? Catlin, hi. Hi. G-word bacon. Fuck you, bacon. Fudge you, bacon, I mean. Alright, what do I need to... Explosive gear bench. Plastic parts and fiber. I just need to go into one, I guess. Hold on, let me text this dude. Why isn't the dings working? Hi, 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 hi. Can y'all hear me? I don't know why the dings aren't working. What up, what up, what up, what up? Yeah, there should be. Hold on, let me see something real quick. Yeah, I don't know why they need to working. Usually when there's a chat thing too, it makes a noise, but noise is working for that. Huh. Hmm. I don't know. Oh. Yo, your room gives me chill trans meat vibes? What the fuck does that mean? Come on, man. You're wild, dude. You're wild. You're in timeout. Alright. This motherfucker.
Ark has seemed especially erratic after the storm.
Burn City,
I need my
Spaceport.
antennas.
Gotta get to a top of a depot. Fuck is a depot? What up? What up? I'm looking and I gotta find a depot. Damn, I have no heavy ammo. Okay, we'll take a medium ammo. Put those in my pocket. Light ammo. Alright, let's go. Thanks, man. I don't know why my sub thing isn't working, dude. Like, it should pop up when people sub, but...
2, 3, 4, charging catapult. Discharge in 5 seconds.
Oh yeah, I will, man. Hell yeah. You want public and private networks to access this app. Windows has blocks and features on all public and privacy networks. I mean... Oh, now Brozak. Now the motherfucker wants to... Motherfucker, dude. I play solo. I don't care. Hey, how do I change back and forth? Aim, sprint, crouch, dodge, walk, toggle, walk, interact, reload, shoulder swap, X. Ah, yeah. Damn, this game looks good. Five, 3, 6. Dirty. Alright, I'm not trying to fight. Sounds like there's fighting over here. And I go this way. Really? About to say, my mans can climb anything. Except for that, I guess. there's something you gotta do with this big thing eventually.
Go to the scrapyard.
Yep. Hello? Okay, so it's B. Hello? Hello? Friendly? Hello?
Hello.
Oh, I'm just making sure y'all can hear me. Testing it. Damn, everybody's real friendly. Should shoot him. Wouldn't that be some shit? Wouldn't that be some absolute shit if they shot me? Don't shoot me, dude. Ooh.
Let's go to the water tower.
Shit. That dude is scared out of his mind. I don't know what the depot is. They know where the depot is? Yeah, they looted this shit. Make sure you please sub, like and sub, man. Trying to get to that 500. Man, I'll take stackables. This is where to find that. gotta bring up, what is that? I'm gonna need that hideout. Okay. Advanced medical. It's to make medicine and shit. Those are actually good to have. So I need that. Ooh. Not gonna need a gas mask. Another one. Alright, I guess I just get out now, right?
Head home at the Baron's hatch.
Come in, get full, get out. That's the plan. We need a key.
Head home at the central swamp lift.
The hell's the depot? Is it a field depot?
I'm on an assignment. I'm trying to get some things done. Got some things to do.
Go ahead, Raider. The elevator is ready.
I know I'm gonna need those. Fuck.
Got your call. Everything looks good, so I'm sending the elevator.
Pretty good. Just got some
Hell yeah.
rubber and shit.
Stand by.
Niggas ran across and fucking spent all this time running across the map.
Do you know where the-
item and now about it.
That's right. That's right. Do you know where the depot is? It says I got to get to the top of a field depot.
Yes, it'll be on top of the field depot. All right, so there's little like buildings / huts. They're around everywhere. They got an antenna on them. You got to get up to one of those. You'll know what it looks like because you'll have to put a battery inside of it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, and that's a field depot. Have a great raid.
You too, man. Okay, so I gotta have a battery. Oh, thank you, man. I didn't know you were making sliders. You're what? Damn, the mashed potatoes are delicious. Oh shit. You're the best. Shit, what happened? What are you up to, man? Somebody on here. Don't do that, Bob. Oh, I need some napkins. I was about to say, you got your heating bad? I'm gonna eat real quick.
You weak.
Today, I'm going to tell 3 very strange disappearance stories. And in one of them, I'm even going to play some audio that was recently made public that's very unsettling.
You playing some
make
ARK?
sure you stick around for that. But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of Strange, Dark, and Mysterious delivered in story
playing some ARK
format,
too?
then you've come to the right place.
Yeah,
because that's
I'm
what we
eating
do.
some
And we upload
like
once a
sloppy
week.
joes
So
right
if
now,
that's
so I
interesting
can't
you,
use my hands, but
please sneak
I'll be
into the
done.
Like Button's house and replace
Does
all
Nick
of
get
their
on tonight or no?
shoelaces with slightly shorter
was,
ones.
yeah.
Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all
Well, I'm gonna get
notifications
on
It's
and play
so
pulled
you don't
pork,
miss any of our weekly uploads.
barbecue,
Okay, let's get
sliders.
into today's stories.
But I haven't gone on the new map yet.
There's a, oh yeah, the Stella Montes.
Yeah.
Have you played it all this weekend?
No, like that.
I don't
At
think any of
8:30
us did.
p.m. On August 20th, 2010, a 76-year-old man named Zhang walked
I just
through
got
the
back
streets
today
of
from
New Taipei
Orlando.
City, which is a major city in northern Taiwan. Zhang was on the end of an evening walk, and he was making his way back.
Dude,
towards
Bowling
his
for
daughter's
Soup was so
apartment,
good.
Where he was also staying. And as
Yeah, they are
Zhang
good.
neared
They were
the
real good.
apartment, he
Were
happened
they-
to notice
but they
there
didn't
was a
cut-
street lamp right outside with this big poster attached to it that he hadn't seen before. And as he got closer, he saw there was also this picture of this middle-aged woman whose name was Chun Yan Chui, And apparently she was missing. And not only that, she also lived in the same building that his daughter lived in. Except Chun was actually a dementia patient, and she was staying on the 5th floor of this apartment building complex where there was this memory care facility, and that's where she was being taken care of. And about a week earlier, she had gone out for an evening walk, this is what it said on the poster, and just not returned. And so since the week before, police had been out looking for her and her family and friends. They were putting these posters up, and it was clear, nobody had found her yet. Now, Jung had never met this woman, but he sort of felt bad for her. And so he found himself staring at this picture and trying to memorize her face, in the off chance that he just saw her somewhere. He could report her to the authorities and hopefully get her rescued. And so after staring at the picture for a little bit longer and sort of feeling bad for this woman, Jung turned and just continued inside the apartment building. And once he was in the apartment building, he made his way over to the elevator. He hit the up button and he waited, and then a moment later, there was a ding and the doors opened up. He stepped onto the elevator, he pressed the button, the doors closed, and then Jung waited as he headed up to his daughter's apartment on the 7th floor. But as he was going up, he noticed he had accidentally hit the 6th floor, not the 7th floor. And right at that moment, he saw that he was reaching the 6th floor, and so the elevator car was slowing down. And so he just was like, oh, whoops, and he hit floor 7. But by the time he hit floor 7, the car had come to a stop on floor 6, and the doors were opening. Like it would need to reset. Doors open on 6, they close, and then he'd go to 7. Like this is no big deal. And so Jung is just waiting, for these doors to open, shut, and go up one more floor. However, when the doors opened on floor 6, Jung is looking straight out, and he could not believe what he saw, and he just began to scream. Around the same time this was happening, Jung's daughter was finishing up her shift at work when she got a phone call, and she saw it was coming from her dad, and he rarely called her when she was at work. So this was sort of confusing and surprising, and so right away she picked it up and she answered, and immediately she hears her dad screaming incoherently. He's obviously terrified, and all Jung's daughter can hear is that her dad is saying he's trapped in an elevator and he doesn't know what to do. And so, Jung's daughter is getting scared just based on what her dad sounds like. She doesn't really know what's going on, but she told her dad, like, okay, I'll call the building. We'll get you some help. Like, stay calm. You're going to be okay. But her dad just continued rambling and he was totally incoherent. And eventually, Jung's daughter just said, okay, Dad, like, just hang tight. I'm going to get you some help. And then she hung up, and then she immediately called her apartment building's administration and emergency services line and told them, hey, I think my dad is stuck on one of your elevator cars. He's really upset. Can you please help him? And after getting the emergency services to, get spun up into action to go save her dad, Jung's daughter left work, hopped in her car, and began rushing home. It would take Jung's daughter about 40 minutes to get back to her apartment. And by the time she got there, she fully expected her dad would be safely out of the elevator. I mean, he was obviously very upset, but she had called the building. They were on it. They were going to get him out. But when she went inside the lobby of the apartment building, she saw a crowd of police officers just standing there. She didn't see her dad anywhere. And before she could even ask any questions, she noticed one of the officers was on the phone. And clearly, just based on what was being said by this officer, he was talking to her father. Like he was talking to somebody who was hysterical, and this officer was doing his best to try to calm him down and sort of talk him through what was happening. And so Jung's daughter immediately walks up to this officer and says, hey, I'm his daughter, the guy who's stuck in the elevator, I'm his daughter. What's going on? I would have figured he'd be out by now. Like, what's happened? At this point, one of the officers confirms that, this really is this man's daughter. And he pulls her aside and he explains to her that, yes, your dad is still in the elevator because we can't get him out. The reality is this is not a normal situation here. He's trapped in there, and really the only way for him to get out is for him to do something really specific. Like us and the building staff, he can't do anything. He has to do this one really specific thing, and right now he's refusing to do it. He's too panicked, he's too scared, we're trying to calm him down, but it's not working. And so Jung's daughter asked this officer, can you please explain to me what you're talking about? Like, what is this specific thing you want him to do? I don't get it. And at that point, the officer kind of composed himself and explained to the daughter, what was really going on inside of that elevator car. And after Jung's daughter heard it, she was horrified, and she immediately understood why her dad was so upset and unwilling to do this one particular thing. It would save him, but would be pretty awful. She got it, but she knew she would have to hop on the phone and convince her dad that he had to do it. Like, like there was no other way. And so she walked over to the officer who was on the phone with her dad. She took the phone and she began talking her dad through, what he really needed to do here. She basically gave him a pep talk and said, "Dad, for me, you got to find the strength and do this thing and get out of there." And sure enough, just a couple of minutes later, the elevator doors in the lobby chimed and opened up, and Zhang came stumbling out in a horrible Right away, police officers rushed towards him, but they bypassed him and went into the elevator and immediately surrounded something in the elevator. It would turn out that missing woman, Chun Yan Chui, the woman who was on that poster that Zhang saw before he walked into the apartment building, well, she really had gone missing a week earlier on her evening walk. But everybody thought she got lost while she was on that walk because she was a dementia patient, and so, she had memory issues. But the reality was, she actually did come back to her apartment. However, when she got on the elevator, she actually made the same mistake that Zhang did. Now, she was not trying to get to the 7th floor, she was trying to get to the 5th floor, but she accidentally pressed the 6th floor. So, up she goes, she gets to the 6th floor, the doors open up, she steps off the elevator car, and she's immediately completely confused. And for what it's worth, it didn't matter that she had dementia. Anybody who got off on the 6th floor would likely be confused if you had never been to this building before, because the 6th floor was actually a private residence, and the person who lived
Hi, he said there'd be little buildings.
Watch your backs, Raiders. The matriarch has been spotted near your location. Keep your wits about you if you decide to go anywhere near, and always keep a close eye on her children.
Ooh. What a vertical grip. Is this a Field Depot?
Want to help me out? Got a to-do list here.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hey, do you know where the Field Depot is?
No.
Ah, shit. Thanks, man. Should have clapped him. So he came from up this way. What's this? Looks important. Ooh. Pistole. We got a pistole. That goes to the same place. Yeah. Where the fuck is the field depot at? Not mean to do that. Hello. Hey, do you know, yeah.
What's up?
Do you know where the field depot is?
Yes. Okay, so southwest, if you head southwest, you'll
Okay.
see like a little, what's it called, like a little overhang with an antenna on top of it, and it has a blue tarp.
All right.
The biggest, yeah. So southwest from here, and it's between the water towers and the electric station.
Water treatment and electric. All right.
Did you get that?
Go to that location.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Damn, it's almost like you don't want to shoot people in this game. It's so friendly. Said I need a battery though. What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? There's a small battery, but I doubt that's it. Oh, wait a minute. Is that what that thing's for? Oh, this is it. Did I get my quest done? Repair on the roof of the field depot.
Did you hear that, Raider? I've never heard anything like it. Please get back here as soon as you can.
Yeah, this game killed, ain't it? I don't know what to grab. Look at me. That's one where I need a key.
Let's head home at the central swamp lift.
We out of here.
You're back.
Bad
Even the
feeling.
slightest. Shawnee told me about what you found. Something's changed. We've seen a lot more probes beaming across the skies. More crashed couriers. We've heard tales of what happens if they find what they're looking for. They might be myths, but I don't want us finding out the hard way. Even the slightest change to ARC's behavior could spell disaster. Good. Break open any probe or courier you see. Keep those signals.
Take a break on this. I'm gonna go play some Rust. How you feeling, Beth? There's no knives down here, right? You gotta get past me first. What? Oh, Billy Bob Thornton.
on that floor was so worried about people breaking into their private residence that they had installed a metal gate in front of the elevator doors. And so unless you had the key to get through this gate, when you got off on the 6th floor, you basically would step onto a little platform that basically is the hallway leading into the 6th floor, and then you'd be hit with the gate. And so that's exactly what happened to Chun. She got off on the 6th floor, maybe thinking this is the 5th floor. She stepped onto that, little narrow strip that you could actually stand on the 6th floor before you reach the gate. And then as she was trying to figure out, like, where am I? Well, this isn't the 5th floor. This doesn't make any sense. There's a gate in front of me. The doors to the elevator closed, and she had no way to open them up again because the buttons to access the elevator were beyond the gate. And so suddenly Chun is standing in this narrow space. The doors have closed.
Keep those
behind
signals
her,
you heard.
and she can't do anything. She's trapped between the gate and the elevator doors. And even though people are using this elevator right behind her, the only person who would come to the 6th floor is the owner of that residence, and they were on vacation. And so for days and days, Chun is just trapped basically in between the gate and the elevator with no one having any idea she was there. She's calling out, she's doing everything she can to get somebody's attention, but nobody can hear her. And after 5 days of this, when the owner of this residence didn't come home because they were on vacation, she eventually died. And she didn't have to pull water or anything. She was just standing for 5 days. And so she dies, and then a couple of days later, Jong accidentally drives to the 6th floor. He's like, oh shoot, we need to go to 7. He hits 7, the doors open on 6. And when they do, Chun's body, which had been basically frozen in this standing position, fell backwards onto him, pinned him to the ground. He starts screaming and freaking out. He gets out from underneath her, but her body, which was in rigor mortis at this
You
point,
like cutting my hair?
and she was lying like a board on the ground with her feet jutting out onto the 6th floor and her upper half inside of the
Some
elevator.
advice,
And so
Raider.
she was blocking the
Arc
doors
probes
from
emit
closing.
signals that
And so
you can hear
Jong
from
is
afar.
freaking out. He's calling his
And if you see a
daughter. He
smoke
can't
plume in the
believe
distance,
there's this dead
chances
person
are
in
you can
here.
trace it
And
back to a
eventually
crashed
police get
courier.
involved and they tell Jong, you just gotta move the body so the doors will close. But again, her body is heavy and it's stiff and she's obviously deceased. She's starting to decompose, and Jong basically couldn't handle it, and he was unwilling to move her body until his daughter hopped on the phone and said, "We got to do it." At which point, he managed to get her out of the way and kind of push her off the side of the elevator. He rode down to the bottom, at which point the police came in and handled the situation. Now, the owner of the 6th floor residence was not held responsible despite putting that gate up and killed Chun. However, despite that, he would end up paying Chun's family $97,000 equivalent just to compensate for her death. On the morning of August 18th, 2018, a 41-year-old man named Vladimir Kostenko stepped out of a taxi onto a desolate road in the middle of the Alaskan wilderness, miles and miles from civilization. All he had with him were his cell phone, a solar-powered charger for his phone, and a backpack with his clothes and a flashlight. Vladimir bent down and leaned into the taxi to pay the taxi driver. And as he was doing that, the driver looked up at him and just said, "You want to do this?" And Vladimir just smiled and nodded and said, "Yep, I'm going to be just fine. Don't worry about me." Now, the taxi driver did not really buy this and just looked at Vladimir and was completely insane. But Vladimir wasn't shocked. I mean, this is kind of how everybody reacted to him when he told them about this trip he was doing into the wilderness. You know, when he had brought it up to his family the first time, they and all of their family and friends had basically rallied together to try to stop Vladimir from going on this trip. Way too dangerous. Vladimir said, "Guys, I'm going. You can't stop me. I'm doing this. It's important to me." And at that point, when the family and friends knew they couldn't change his mind, they shifted and said, "Well, at least, bring a gun or air spray or something to protect yourself." But Vladimir also refused that too. He said, so Vladimir was extremely religious. He actually had left his home country in Russia when he was in his early 20s because he was being persecuted for his Christian beliefs. And so now, in the United States. He lived out in Washington State and basically lived his life like a monk. He spent the majority of his time, basically praying, meditating, reading religious books. He would often go on these multi-day long fasts. He did work part-time as a mechanic, but he rarely charged his clients when he did work. And then even when he did charge them, he was working so few hours.
Damn, that thing just whacked somebody.
Totally unsubstantial. But again, the way Vladimir looked at this is he didn't need money, because ultimately God could take care of him. But despite all of his fasting and his praying and, his generosity, lately Vladimir has been feeling lost. Like, he did feel deeply spiritual, but at the same time, he didn't really feel fulfilled. He felt like he was missing a purpose in life. It was really starting to bother him. And so it was around this time that Vladimir decided to go on this trip. One of Vladimir's family friends was this guy named Dmitry, and he owned this small cabin way out in the middle of the Alaskan wilderness. Now, Dmitry didn't use this cabin very much, but he kept it in good shape. It was fully furnished, there was a wood-burning stove inside, and the pantry was stocked with 3 years' supply of food. And so at some point, when Vladimir and Dmitry were talking, and Vladimir talked about feeling sort of lost and wanting to reconnect with his spirituality and find his purpose in life, well, at some point, Dmitry said, well, hey, if you want, you can go use my cabin and sort of disconnect from society and go retreat out there and sort of focus on yourself and sort of get right with the world. You're welcome to go out there anytime you want. You can stay out there as long as you want and for free. And Vladimir had happily accepted. And now here he was, standing on this desolate road in the Alaskan wilderness, watching as the taxi driver drove away. Except he wasn't even close to the cabin.
Oh, shit.
He was in the middle of nowhere already, but he still had to go 14 more miles to make his way to his cabin. But Vladimir was so excited, he really felt like this was the thing he needed to figure out his purpose in life. So, he put his backpack on, took a deep breath, and began running. 3 months later, on November 3rd of 2018, Dmitry reached his cabin. He found himself in his plane flying over the area where his cabin was. Dmitry was feeling very concerned. So obviously, Dmitry was out of his cabin. But Dmitry had also told Vladimir that when he went out there, he really ought to bring a gun with him. Or if nothing else, at least some bear spray or something to protect himself. Because this is truly the wild. You want to talk to the food chain anymore. And you want to be able to protect yourself. But Vladimir had said no. He would not be going with any sort of weaponry, that, God was going to look after him, and he'd be fine. And Dmitry's like, that's a bad plan. But he just could not convince Vladimir to change his mind. And so ultimately, Dmitry sort of regretted even suggesting this idea because he didn't expect Vladimir to go unarmed. But he felt like, it's already in motion. And so he told Vladimir, okay, fine, do your thing, but when you're out there, I need you to communicate with me regularly so I know you're okay. And Vladimir promised he would. And at first, that is exactly what happened. Vladimir, made the 14-mile hike from where he was dropped by the taxi. He got to the cabin, he got all set up. And then just about every other day or every few days, he would hike up this nearby mountain where there was cell phone service, and he would update Dmitry. He would tell him that things were going great, he was spending lots of time meditating and praying, and, he was foraging for berries, and there was this pesky squirrel that kept coming in and stealing his food, so he was trying to figure out what to do with the squirrel, but clearly, things were going fine, and Vladimir was safe. However, after 6 weeks of Vladimir being at this cabin, those pretty regular updates just abruptly stopped. Now, at first, Dmitry kind of chalked it up as like, well, I've been talking to him for weeks. There didn't appear to be any, burgeoning crises or anything going on in his life that might warrant some concern. He's a capable guy, maybe because it's the Alaskan winter, and Alaskan winters are notoriously dark. There's not a lot of sunlight. Maybe his solar-powered charger isn't working. He can't get enough sunlight, so he can't charge his phone. So maybe that's what it is. He just can't contact me because his phone doesn't turn on. Basically, Dmitry was coming up with these sort of rationales for why he wasn't hearing from his friend. But as the days went on, and he still didn't hear from Vladimir, it didn't help but start to feel like something's wrong here. And so finally, early November, Dmitry still hadn't heard from Vladimir. It's been about a month since those text messages stopped. Dmitry decided to get into his plane and fly out over the area where this cabin was and literally look down. Also, this gave Dmitri the opportunity to put some supplies on the plane in these big buckets that he could literally throw out down to Vladimir to also restock it. So Dmitri is now in his plane and he's circling around the area where his cabin is. But this cabin is really small and it's sort of in this big sea of trees. I mean, there's nothing else for miles. And so it's pretty difficult with the naked eye to actually look out and see his own cabin. But Dmitri had this camera on the underside of his plane that he could maneuver.
I don't know if that was a good idea or not.
A screen that he could see from the cockpit. It was basically an enhanced view of the ground down below. It was a lot easier to see, for example, his cabin. And so as he's circling, he's moving the camera. Bam. The screen is his cabin. There doesn't appear to be anything wrong with the cabin. You know, it all looks good. There's smoke coming up out of the chimney. And as he's circling, he's thinking, okay, Vladimir clearly is going to hear me. He's going to come outside and I'll see that he's okay. And sure enough, as he's circling around, Dmitri sees on his screen the front door of the cabin opens, and his friend Vladimir walks right outside onto the porch, puts his hands on his hips, looks up, and he waves at Dmitri. And there's this moment of clear recognition, like obviously Vladimir knows this is Dmitri coming to check on him, and like, you know, Vladimir's down there kind of gesticulating that, hey, you know, everything's fine, I'm good, you know, sorry about the phone thing, or, you know, Dmitri didn't know what he was doing. It just sort of seemed like, okay, there's recognition, and it's been a month, but everything is fine. And so Dmitri got down nice and low and continued to circle, and on one of his passes for the cabin, he pulled a lever, dropped the supplies, those buckets of supplies that landed down below, and then as Dmitri continued to circle, he watched on the camera as Vladimir walked up and put his hands on the supplies and waved at Dmitri, sort of signaling thank you for the supplies. And at that point, Dmitri's thinking, okay, Vladimir's just fine, everything's good, I can go home. And so that's what he did. Now, he would have landed and gone and seen Vladimir up close, but, you know, there wasn't anywhere to land anywhere nearby. Like, this was the closest he could get to Vladimir, and so he decided this was enough. So Dmitri turned around and he went home. But about 2 months later, on December 23rd, Dmitri was once again in his plane flying over the area where his cabin was. Because over these last 2 months, he continued not to get any text messages or any communication from Vladimir.
Head home at the Red Lake balcony list.
Expected that, given that he flew out there before and they clearly recognized that, hey,
An ARC orbiter is en route. The safe window is closing. You have 10 minutes to return to Speranza. I repeat, 10 minutes.
Maybe that would inspire Vladimir to find a way to send out communications, let Dmitri know he's okay. He hadn't in 2 months. And so Dmitri's thinking, okay, that's good. Also, it's
Gotta
now
search one of these.
and the winter in Alaska is full bore. I mean, tons of snow on the ground. It's frigid temperatures. It is really brutal winter conditions. And then lastly, there's also just in the area of Dmitri's cabin. And so all those things combined made Dmitri think, okay, better get out of here. So once again, Dmitri is circling low. His camera trained towards the ground, and moving around and circling. Eventually, he finds his cabin. His cabin is clearly in one piece. So the earthquake did not destroy his cabin, but there's no sign of Vladimir anywhere. But then again, like, you know, this is just the first second he's in the cabin. He's only been in the area for 20 minutes now. Maybe Vladimir has not heard the plane yet, and so, you know, Dmitri's not lost hope. And he continues to circle. And as he circles, he drops the supply box right out.
Alright, I need to go.
And at this point, Dmitri's thinking, okay, that's pretty noisy, having the supply box smash into the ground outside. Certainly now, Vladimir's going to come outside to see what's going on. I mean, there's not much else happening. This clearly is something that brought his attention. No, Dmitri's out of the cabin. And so at this point, Dmitri gets as low as he possibly can. He's got his camera trained right at the cabin, and as he's doing another pass, he realizes something. There's no smoke coming out of the chimney. In fact, the top of the chimney is covered in snow, which means clearly no fire has been lit, at least not recently. So Dmitri starts to panic. Like, if anybody was in that cabin right now without a fire lit, it would be so cold they would likely freeze to death really quickly. Like, this is a crisis. What's going on with Vladimir? But Dmitri couldn't land anywhere nearby. Like, there was no way for him to really get down to his cabin. So he had to fly all the way to the nearest airport. And once he touched down, he immediately contacted the Alaska State Troopers. This was missing because I don't know what they even need to do. However, after Dimitri made this report, the state troopers didn't launch some huge search for Vladimir. And that's important because they weren't actually sure he was missing. They understood that Dimitri was flying out over the area and had seen snow on the chimney cap and broken out, nobody could survive with the fire. And also, you know, he flew over the area and supplies, and Vladimir didn't come out of the area. They understood. But they're also thinking, like, you know, it's possible Vladimir just might not have been there. He was out hunting, you know, foraging for food, whatever he was doing. Maybe he just wasn't in the area. And that's why he was ferocious. So just head into the terrible weather out in the wilderness was really risky. It was the trooper's thought it wasn't worth doing this big search. And so instead of launching a search, the troopers instead it's just combed through airline records, local airline records, to see if maybe a was, you know, taken off. There's no way to just talk to Vladimir without telling anyone. And so finally, 3 days after filing this Dimitri said that was enough. I just take it in my own hands and go out there myself and see what's going on with Vladimir. So he chartered a private helicopter.
I'm glad I made it through that.
When he got there, he gets on the helicopter and he just scans the property.
Yeah, there's super right there.
Cabin, there's no firewood outside stacked up with snow all over it. There's loads of snow in the cabin. There's snow kind of drifted up on the front door, making it seem like nobody's been in or out of this cabin for some time. You know, Dimitri is looking around for Vladimir, but there's no sign of anything. Dimitri calls out for Vladimir, but there's no response. So, with some level of trepidation,
Hello?
Dimitri begins walking out towards his cabin.
Hey, brother.
He gets close enough to the front door.
Don't shoot. I'm friendly.
This cabin has clearly been boarded up from the outside. There's this big piece of metal that's been placed, basically blocking the door so nobody can go inside it. And so Dimitri's thinking, let's leave the cabin. Understand what's going on. So,
All raiders, we have Ark on screen. 5 minutes left. Go find a way home. I repeat, 5 minutes.
There's still firewood, there's still food, there's no sign of chaos, no sign of any struggle whatsoever. Like everything looks good. So Dimitri inside this noticed that clearly Vladimir had been labeling this firewood in particular, where the writing was clear. What it said was, frankincense aroma, do not burn. So Dimitri's looking at this piece of wood, you know, that's been labeled as something that he shouldn't be burning, and he's looking at other pieces of wood that also have some level of labeling on them. He's thinking,
Do me a solid and don't cause any ruckus.
I don't understand that at all. There was no other clues about where Vladimir had gone, and even the labeling of the wood, like that didn't give him anything. And so the impression that Dimitri got after seeing this firsthand was that at some point, Vladimir, for reasons completely unknown, just decided to board up the cabin and disappear into the Alaskan wilderness with basically no protection, no clear sign he even brought food with him. He just got up and left. Friends and family,
Yes?
and even some employees.
Thanks. That's a
There
good-
was chance he could still
Our
be
scouts
there.
have reported several
In fact,
raider
one of my
hatches with
sources thought
leaking
they
hydraulic
found
pipes.
Vladimir in Hawaii.
They still
There
work,
must be
but
him. And
not for
again, they
long.
thought they found him in Oregon.
Mind patching one up
Left to be
next time you're out there.
But the case is still open, and authorities think at least some do.
Pick a hatch
that he
and
might
patch
be
it up.
alive somewhere, but nobody knows where. And so at this point, all the family has to go off of
A raider,
is
huh?
the final
What do you need?
image of Vladimir, which was taken from inside of Dimitri's plane when he did that first flyover, and he saw Vladimir come out on the porch. That is the final image of Vladimir that we know of. We don't know what happened after this image. All we know is, at some point he began labeling.
If I see as much as a hint of googly
writing
eyes,
down
I will
the
shoot you
aroma
through the door
wood
slot.
makes, and then he boarded his place up. And
You're one of the new arrivals, right?
he went next. next?
I need a volunteer to test out this upgraded Pharaoh. This Pharaoh should take a fireball out in one shot. Just don't let it get too close.
In case you haven't heard yet, our newest graphic novel...
Heard you came in during that big storm. Hope you managed to shake the sand out of your clothes by now.
It contains another 9 heart-stopping, strange dark...
I heard rumors about some signal Shawnee picked up. ARC is constantly adapting, and I'm sure this won't be their last warning sign. Well, if it's excellent, take these new grenades I've been working on and go wreak some havoc up there.
So you gotta check it out. The book comes out on September 30th, but again, you can pre-order your copy at book.allenstudios.com, or you can click the link in the description below. There are a limited number of hand-signed copies available, but those are gonna sell out very quickly. So please pre-order today, because remember, your nightmares are real. At 7 p.m. on October 21st, 1978, a 20-year-old pilot named Frederick Valentik flew his small plane over a body of water just south of Australia called the Bering Strait. He'd just taken off from Melbourne, Australia, and his flight plan was to go 60 miles south to an island called King Island. And he was really excited about this flight. Not so much about where he was going, but because this represented the first time he'd actually be flying by himself at night. So Frederick had always dreamed of becoming a pilot, but the journey to actually becoming one had been really difficult. He had applied twice, actually, to the Royal Australian Air Force, but unfortunately he could not meet their requirements. And then also, he had tried to become a commercial airline pilot, but he had failed their tests. But luckily for Frederick, his father had a ton of money, and he ultimately swooped in and funded Frederick to take some flying lessons, and with that, he was able to ultimately pass the test and get his pilot's license. And so, as Frederick coasted along, looking down below at the lights of Melbourne disappearing behind him, he felt like he was on top of the world. He was doing the one thing he had always dreamed of, and he was so happy, and it was so cool to be doing it at night by himself. And so he was just looking out at the sights and looking ahead at the vast strait, which is this huge, dark expanse of water, and it was like everything was right in the world. He was doing exactly what he wanted to do. However, only a few minutes into this flight, at
Pharaohs are basic but reliable.
Something strange. As Frederick was flying along,
Raider,
he suddenly became aware of a light.
If you need more grenades, you can always build.
It's nighttime, so it's totally dark where he is. He's flying over a body of water, so he's kind of like in this void of darkness. And so any lights are really going to illuminate the cockpit. And so he sees this light, he turns around, and maybe 3,000 or 4,000 feet behind him, he sees what looks like a plane. That is the source of the light. And right away, Frederick's thinking that is both surprising and also potentially very problematic, because he knew from his training that that was far too close to be to another plane. And so the only explanation was either that pilot was off course or Frederick was off course. And Frederick's thinking, if I'm off course here and I'm flying where I shouldn't be, I'm going to get in trouble with air traffic control, and I might lose my pilot's license. Like the one thing I covet, I might lose it. And so initially, Frederick really didn't know what to do. He was sort of panicking and just kind of frozen. Like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do right now. And as this was happening, Frederick kept instinctively looking back at this light, trying to figure out what this plane was doing. Every time he came around, over the course of just a few seconds, it was very obvious that this light, this other plane, was gaining on him. And so Frederick starts to worry, like, this is not just about maybe getting in trouble or not. This plane might crash into me. Look how fast they're going. What do I do? And so Frederick, at this point, he double-checked that he was on course, and based on his instruments and what he'd been doing, he really felt like he was on course here. And he just thinks, you know what, the best thing I can do here is just call air traffic control. So he grabs the radio, and he gets a hold of Melbourne Air Traffic Control, and he says, hey, there's this plane that is like right behind me. They're gaining on me. I'm worried they're going to crash into me. Do I need to deviate? What's going on here? And the air traffic controller very calmly says, okay, let me check the radar, let me check the schedule.
What are you doing, Bugger Man?
Look, this light
say hi.
On him. It's getting closer and closer.
Hi.
And then finally, the controller gets back on the radio. And they tell Frederick, there is no other aircraft anywhere near you. Like, there's nothing over the Bass Strait. You are completely
Your blood pressure is high.
But Frederick couldn't believe this. Because by now, the light, the aircraft that was right behind him, has gotten right behind his. It's basically right on his tail. And Frederick is now completely panicked, and he's getting ready to try to explain, like, no, wait a minute, like, there's got to be a better explanation here. There's something right here. And at that very moment, it becomes very clear to Frederick that this is not some ordinary aircraft, because it began doing something.
What are you doing with my hand?
No normal aircraft.
Wow.
This light suddenly began orbiting Frederick's aircraft.
Look.
Frederick is traveling
Right there.
forward,
Look.
and this ball of light is basically whipping around his aircraft as fast as can be. He can barely make it out. He's starting to panic, and at the same time, Frederick begins to hear the sound of his engine starting to fail. And there was no reason for it. His craft was fine when he took off, but now it's clearly sputtering and failing. And so all Frederick could do in this totally intense, panicked moment was just grab the radio and begin talking to air traffic control about what he was seeing. The person Frederick actually spoke to on the ground in this moment was an air traffic controller in Melbourne named Steve Roby. And Frederick would come off to Steve like he was totally crazy.
That's hooked up to the camera.
Steve would say that he couldn't really understand what he was talking about. But at some point, Frederick clearly began talking about some sort of craft orbiting his phone, and that his engine was starting to fail, and he didn't know what was going on, and he couldn't make an emergency landing. He was over water. And then suddenly, Steve remembers hearing this grinding metallic sound come over the radio that basically washed out what Frederick was saying. And then it just goes deadly silent. And after that, Frederick disappeared. They searched the area where they knew he was before he disappeared, but they never found his body.
Oh, yeah?
There was no sign of a crash. He never landed at King Island or back to Melbourne. He was just gone. All they have is that final recording of him describing something orbiting him, then this grinding metallic sound, and then silence. And recently, that audio recording
deleted all.
Now, before I actually play a clip from that audio, here's the official explanation for what happened to Frederick. As he was flying over the Bass Strait, it was so dark and there were no lights really anywhere that at some point, because he's an inexperienced pilot, I suppose, he flipped his plane upside down without realizing it, and the light that he was seeing was actually just a reflection off the water below of his own plane. And eventually, from flying upside down, his engine began to fail, and he crashed into the Bass Strait. However, not everybody believes this explanation. Because, one, it seems sort of preposterous to imagine that Frederick would not have realized he had flipped the plane upside down and was flying for so long inverted. Like, how could you not notice that? And two, this would not be the first time that somebody reported unexplained phenomena over the Bass Strait. In fact, over the years leading up to this incident with Frederick, there had been so many reports of UFOs flying over the Bass Strait and also unexplained disappearances that they've dubbed the Bass Strait the Bass Strait Triangle, after the Bermuda Triangle. Basically, it's a part of the world where a disproportionate number of unexplained phenomena occur. And so to this day, Frederick's disappearance remains a mystery. All we have is his final call for help.
Did you like it? Dude, did you really just close that out? What you got there? Say, whoa. 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 Wow. Oh. How do you keep doing that? Yeah, how do you keep doing that? Yeah. Yeah.
Today's episode deals almost exclusively with suicide and with depression, and so I wanted to start this by saying my actual reaction to today's top story when I first learned about it was, oh my god. That might actually be the worst thing that can happen to you. But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right channel because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please kidnap the like button, cover them in barbecue sauce, and then drop them off on the beaches of Nikumaroro Island. Also, please subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories.
What are you doing, dude?
On the evening of February 28th, 2013, 37-year-old Jeff Bush was just getting home from his job as a laborer. He walked through the front door of his very modest single-story home in Seffner, Florida, which is just outside of Tampa. And he walked into the kitchen where his sister-in-law and his niece were, and he said hi to them. And he
Listen here, you don't move my hand away.
Jeff, as did Jeff's brother, Jeremy. After a few minutes of small talk with them, he left the kitchen and went to his own bedroom, the same bedroom he had been sleeping in since he was a little kid. He had grown up in this house. He goes into his room, he hops into bed, turns on the TV, and looks forward to relaxing for the next couple of hours.
Hey, dude. No. Hey, no, you don't move Daddy's hand.
Comes home from his second job. He actually worked during the day with Jeff at the same company, but had to pick up additional shifts at night because he needed to support his daughter and his wife. And so he comes home and he goes through the front door and he goes over to Jeff's room and he knocks on the door and he opens it up and he says, "Hey Jeff, we don't have work tomorrow. I just found out, so feel free to sleep in tomorrow." Jeff was pretty happy about this and he said, "Okay, thanks for letting me know." And then Jeremy shut Jeff's door, turned around and walked out to see his wife and his kid. About an hour later at 11 p.m., Jeremy, his wife, and his kid are on the other side of the house from where Jeffrey is, and they're laying in bed watching TV when all of a sudden they hear what sounds like a car smashing into the side of the house. It was extremely loud, and immediately Jeremy jumps out of his bed and he hears from the other side of the house Jeff yelling out for help. Jeremy runs into the hall, his wife's right behind him, and there's no damage in the hall, there's no smoke, there's no fire, and they see Jeff's bedroom is still shut, so they run down the hall, they open that door up, and it's dark in his room, and as Jeremy's trying to figure out what he's looking at, his wife reaches behind him and flicks on the switch, and the light from the room illuminates the most bizarre and horrible scene. Jeff, the bedroom, everything, it's all gone, and it's been replaced by this massive sinkhole right in the middle of the room. As Jeff was laying on his bed, apparently the sinkhole had opened up, and when it did, it completely opened up. Jeff fell into it along with everything else in the room, and then it kind of churned on top of him, like it opened its mouth and then squeezed up over him, so that when Jeremy is looking in, it actually looked like a flat layer of dirt. He could only see the corner of a bed poking out. There was no sign of Jeff. He saw the cable from the TV was still coming off the wall and going into the pit and disappearing into the dirt. And so Jeremy starts screaming for Jeff, and he can hear Jeff's muffled screams as he's yelling for him to come save him. And so Jeremy, without any hesitation, jumps into this hole, which right then, it was only about 6 to 10 feet deep. It would end up becoming 60 feet deep over the next couple of days. But initially, it was only about 6 feet deep. He jumps in and he starts using his hands to try to burrow down to his brother. But for every scoop he was able to remove, about 10 times that would be created as the walls continued to collapse and this hole continued to sink and grow. Jeremy's wife calls the police, and Jeremy gets a shovel and he goes back into the hole and he's digging as fast as he can, but he's really making no progress, and he's screaming for his brother, but eventually Jeff yells for help, stop, and he can't hear him, he can't see him, and he's just digging, but he knows he's gone. When the police arrive, they forcibly remove Jeremy from the hole. He did not want to leave his brother. They pulled him out of the house, they pulled his wife and his kid out, and they've evacuated the area. and they had to rope it off because they didn't want anybody going near it because they didn't know how big this hole was going to get. They weren't sure if it was going to suddenly open up and engulf, the whole stretch of the street. And so all of Jeff's family just had to watch in horror as they basically did nothing to try to help him. They had to let the sinkhole basically develop before they were able to actually go in there and try to help him. And so if he had been alive, there was just no way they could have saved him. After several hours, they were able to go up close and feed in this microphone system that they put on top of the actual sinkhole that would apparently be able to pick up sound if Jeff was making any sound whatsoever. And it wasn't picking up any signs of life. And at this point, they determined that he was deceased. But before they could get their audio recorder out of the hole opened up again, got even bigger, and swallowed the recorder into the hole. But despite getting bigger and wider and actually getting big tools in there to start trying to pull stuff out of it, they could never find Jeff's body. And so the decision was made to leave him wherever he is, somewhere in the sinkhole, and they filled it in with gravel, and then they knocked down the house as well as the 2 other neighboring houses. And so to this day, Jeffrey's body is still somewhere underground in that sinkhole. In 2008, Joshua Maddox was an 18-year-old guy living in a small city in Colorado. He was known for having a very carefree attitude. He was kind of a free spirit. He had really long hair. He liked to play the guitar. He loved music. And he spent a lot of his time free writing. His parents were divorced, so Josh lived with his father, whose name was Mike, and his 2 sisters, who were named Kate and Ruth. On May 8th, he told his sister Kate that he was going for a walk as he left the house. Josh loved being out in nature and regularly went out walking around the woods by himself, so this was not out of the ordinary for him. But that night, when he didn't come back, that was out of the ordinary, and the family was pretty concerned. By the next day, when he hadn't shown up and they couldn't get in touch with him, and they called around and no one knew where he was, they would go to the police and file a missing person report. So the police launched this massive search, but there's nothing really to go on besides what he told Kate before he left, which was, "I'm going for a walk." So there wasn't really a good starting point. And so
You laughing at over
As
there.
days turned into weeks, turned into months, and no one's heard from him. No one knows what happened to him. Hope was fading that they were going to find him alive. In fact, hope was fading that they were even going to find his body. 7 years after Josh went missing, a startling discovery was made. A builder named Chuck Murphy had this little tiny cabin he owned in the middle of the woods, about a mile away from where Josh's family home was in Colorado. The cabin had fallen into disrepair. At one time, he might have used it, but now the land it was on was much more valuable than the cabin itself. So the decision was made to demolish the cabin and sell the land. And so he brings out a demolition crew. They start knocking down walls. And when they crack open the chimney, when they're standing inside of the cabin and the chimney is now coming down, they see a body crammed into the chimney in the fetal position with its legs over its head. Chuck calls the police, who come over, and they're able to identify this body as being that of Josh Maddox. The cabin had been consistently overlooked during the different searches for Josh, because it just didn't look like a place anybody would go. It was like this broken down, caving in pile of wood, and they just kind of wrote it off, and no one thought to actually go check it out. Chuck, the owner of the cabin, said that he was really never there, but he had gone in the time between when Josh disappeared and now, and he said when he went inside, there was no signs of anything unusual. It looked like the same old cabin, and he was only in there for a couple of minutes, but he didn't see anything. The autopsy revealed Josh had been wedged inside of this chimney for 7 years, meaning as soon as he went missing, he wound up wedged in the chimney less than a mile from his house. He had no drugs in his system, he had no trauma to his body, so no broken bones or knife marks or gunshot wounds. Initially, authorities said this death was an accident, and what must have happened is Josh came to this cabin and he wanted to get inside. It was locked, and so he thought he would go through the chimney and he got stuck. But Chuck Murphy said, no, that's not possible, because I put this really heavy-duty rebar cage over the top of the chimney cap to prevent animals and other debris getting inside the chimney. And certainly a person could not have fit through there. However, they couldn't go back and confirm there was indeed this chimney cap because the cabin had already been demolished. In addition to the chimney cap that kind of contradicted this whole accident hypothesis, there were a few other significant unanswered questions about this case. The first one was there was this big breakfast bar, this wooden breakfast bar that was ripped off the wall inside of the cabin and placed up against the fireplace. And if that wasn't there, you would be able to see the underside of Josh because he was tucked up just underneath where you could see. So that means either Josh ripped it off the wall and put it in front of the chimney before going into the chimney, or He was in the chimney and somebody else broke it off and put it in front. The second big question mark is Josh's body position. His legs were over his head, so his position indicates he would have had to go into the chimney head first. And so, I don't know about you, but if you were going to go into a chimney, I would not be leaping head first. It just seems counterintuitive and unnecessarily risky. And the third question mark are Josh's clothes, or lack thereof. He was only wearing a shirt. He didn't have pants or underwear or anything else on, just a thermal shirt. And the clothes he didn't have on were neatly folded and stacked inside the cabin next to the fireplace. Meaning, for this to be an accident, he would have had to gain access to the cabin, take off most of his clothing, fold it up, put it next to the fireplace, rip off the breakfast bar, put it in front of the fireplace, go outside, climb onto the roof, rip off the rebar cage, and then only wearing a t-shirt, go head first down a chimney, and then get stuck and die. Very few people, including authorities, buy this is truly just an accident, but they're lacking evidence to suggest it's something else. And so to this day, it remains an accident. On December 6, 1941, 20-year-old U.S. Navy sailor Clifford Olds met up with a couple of his shipmates at the Monkey Bar for a night out in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. A barmaid took this picture of Cliff all the way on the right with his friends and then offered to sell this back to them, to which they said, "That's a ripoff, you can keep it." This would be the last picture of Cliff alive. The next morning, just before 8 a.m., Cliff was back on board his ship, the USS West Virginia. He was starting his workday when the Japanese launched the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. Cliff's ship was a prime target and was quickly hit with 2 bombs, 7 torpedoes, hundreds of people are dying on board, and very quickly his ship is starting to sink. On board a Navy ship, there's all these different conditions the ship is set to depending on what you're doing, whether you're at war or you're just docked in peacetime, and all of these different conditions have very specific instructions. And one of those conditions is Condition Z.